Hi, everybody. Welcome to Data Legends, Stories from the IT Trenches. This is our new podcast. It's a podcast for CIOs, CTOs, DevOps, and SRE leaders who are rapidly, stealthily, wildly shaping the success of businesses around the world. In each of our episodes, we are honored to be able to feature a conversation with a real data legend, talk a little bit about these individuals who are going to share their unique experiences, some lessons that they've learned, the battle scars they've earned, and really talk about how they've been able to successfully navigate this rapidly changing IT and engineering landscape. So if you want to be compelled and inspired by stories of people, processes, technologies that have banded together to manage data at scale, you've come to the right place. As for me, my name is Courtney Pilata. I lead the marketing team here at Chaos Search. And today's guest, which I am very honored to introduce, is Amr Awadallah, founder, CEO of ZIR AI. And today we're going to talk about some really exciting trends and observations that Amr's had in his really distinguished past in IT. Welcome, Amr.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. So maybe as we get things kicked off here, can we start with just a little bit on your background? Help us understand your background a little bit. You've been a founder, leader of engineering teams. You've been at small companies, large companies, really successful organizations. Maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'll go back. I was born in 1970. Is that fun enough?
That's good. That's a great starting point.
I got my bachelor's and master's degrees in Egypt, Cairo University. That's my home country. And then I came to the US in 1995 to get my PhD from Stanford University, which I did get with Mendel Rosenblum. Mendel, for those that know of him, he is the founder of VMware. Of course, one of the greatest IT companies in existence today. After that, I created my first startup, which was acquired by Yahoo. And I spent about 8 years at Yahoo. And then after that, I left Yahoo and started Cloudera, which became a public company on the New York Stock Exchange. Though a few weeks ago, it got acquired back private by a firm called KKR. And then after Cloudera, I joined Google for a couple of years. I was leading developer relations at Google, for Google Cloud specifically. And then, most recently, I'm now CEO and founder of a company called ZIR, which many of you will hear about soon.
Awesome. Well, that's a lot of perspective to be able to share, and appreciate you talking a little bit about that. Certainly, that is absolutely a journey, I can imagine. And in doing all of that, Amr, I'm sure you've seen and really been able to observe how you take what looks like a future trend and really figure out, is that trend something you really want to get behind? And maybe to that end, tell us a little bit about what are some of the trends that you've observed that are driving innovation in technology that you've become really passionate about and maybe inspire the choices you make from a career perspective?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit pragmatic actually now I approach these things. Like I always like to boil them back to, it's not about the technology, it's not about the trends, it's about the problem. What problem are we solving? And then if you can lock onto a problem that is a common problem that many people have, so it's not just a problem that you have, it's a problem that many folks have, and you are fortunate enough to be able to match that problem to a new technological trend that can solve that problem in a better way, then you need to jump on top of that right away. That's kind of how I have guided my journey through this. So, for example, while I was at Yahoo, I was responsible for doing business intelligence and data analytics for a number of Yahoo's key products, and had a number of problems and how to scale it, how to do it more in a more agile way, how to do it in a more fast way for our end consumers, how to generate deeper insights than just regular insights. And nothing out there was really solving that problem until we came into this new concept of big data and how you have systems that are a lot more agile and do what's called schema on read versus schema on write. But without getting very technical, it became very clear that there is this new technological trend that can solve that problem in a much better way than ever before. And that was when I left Yahoo to found Cloudera. So that's usually my guiding principle is there a problem at the first place? Because a technology without a problem is worth nothing, to be honest. So is there a problem at the first place? And is that problem ubiquitous, like many people have it? And is that technology solving it in a unique way? If yes, 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 then that's it. I'm jumping on top of that. That's kind of how it
Those are good
how I
measures. And having all those things come together is not always the case, right? How many times do we all see you have two of
yeah
those check boxes, but not a third? And you have to make the hard choice to say, hey, can we really get behind this? Or is it going to be too heavy a lift?
yeah yeah exactly. And timing is very important. Like again, luck and timing is a big part of this. Like for example, I always like to use as an example, like Steve Jobs. He was involved in a project called the Apple Newton, which was the kind of the precursor of the iPhone. And the Apple Newton was too early, just too early. Like the people didn't have the problem yet. There wasn't enough people with the problem. And the hardware technology wasn't really ready to make it in a form factor that is appealable. And the Newton was a major failure. And like Steve Jobs failed big time with the Apple Newton. But then he came back when the time was right, and the iPod, and then the iPhone, and lo and behold, it's now changed the world. So timing and luck is very, very important. It's not just enough to detect the problem; it's important to detect it at the right time. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's very true. And you always think about how many things you learn from the successes you have and the failures, because they are just sometimes I find in my own career, they're those foundational moments where you almost learn the most. And you say, next time, I'm going to ask this question. And
absolutely. No, we learn from our failures more than we learn from our successes. It sticks with us longer, actually, as well.
yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely does. It definitely does. There are always opportunities to learn. Well, what about as you think about even future trends that are driving the decision behind you founding ZIR and what you're seeing as a market problem there? Maybe it's a good example of trying to get on top of something you see is pervasively going to be an analytics challenge.
Yeah, so I mean, ZIR, in a nutshell, as a company, we are specializing in how to leverage AI to solve some problems that we have been struggling to solve as a human civilization for a very long time. And one of these problems is seeking knowledge. So when you seek knowledge today, uh, most ways of seeking knowledge through search engines and such, they are very keyword based in nature. You search by a keyword, you put a keyword, and then the engines will try to match up the keywords for you. But humans don't think in keywords. We think in concepts. We think in essence. We think in meanings and ideas. Keywords, vocabulary, grammar, the things coming out of my mouth right now and going in your ears, they are our communication protocol, like TCP/IP for computers. That's how they talk to each other. But they're only the means to the end. The end is to get an idea from my head into your head. And not only are we humans very bad at doing that, very few of us are good at really using language and expressing their thoughts. Even if they are good within a language, there's 6,000 languages across the world. 6,000 languages that we came up with as humans to talk to each other, which is just mind-boggling when you think about it. So the web and the content on the web has been very dominant by the English language over the last 30 years. But now we have very rich content and ideas and concepts coming in from all kinds of languages, right? We have great research coming up in German language, in Spanish, in Portuguese, and Russian, and Chinese, and in you name it, Japanese, you name it. There's so many good knowledge out there. And when we search in English and only we get back English, we are selling ourselves short. There might be a much more better idea in Japanese answering our question. So that's kind of the idea of ZIR, and is how can you take language and convert language into meaning and then match meaning to find the best meaning out there, regardless of which language it was written in. The interesting thing is these techniques for being able to do that literally only existed and have been created and born over the last 10 years. So when we entered the 2010s, the best of the techniques that can understand language could only understand at the level of somebody who is 7 years old. That's
It's
it.
wild. It's
A child,
wild, right?
essentially. Yeah,
All
yeah,
this information, but that level of understanding.
yeah. But then over the last 10 years, a bunch of very fundamental changes took place that now allow us with neural networks to understand language at the level of a grown-up, an adult human. And that's going to change the world around us in very significant ways. So that's one of course, I'm very biased because I'm in this company. So I think that's a very significant trend that will affect us in a very major way across many, many industries.
Oh yeah, no, you can definitely see that could be a very widely spanning challenge for people who are looking to really get the right answers and the best answers, even though they may not exist in the exact frame that one would ask it today. So what would you consider maybe one of your greatest challenges as you sort of bring this offering and this new set of capabilities into the market? What are some of the challenges that you're dealing with, even from an engineering perspective and a team build perspective, that you want to make sure you guys overcome in the coming months and years?
Yeah, I mean, that's very common to every startup in the early years. I had the same challenges at Cloudera, and I had the same challenges before that as well. There's two things I think that boil down at this stage that are very critical. Number one is really narrowing down on what's the product market fit. So, okay, you have a great technology that can do this. That's great. And you know the customers have some problems that can truly benefit from that. But how can you create a product that sits in the middle, that truly connects these two things in a very smooth way? And I can't overstate that enough, how important it is to focus on that before you start hitting the gas to grow your company and hiring lots and lots of salespeople and doing lots of marketing and even doing lots of engineering. You need to really, really fine tune that. I have this repeatable product that I know solves this problem in a very smooth way, and by leveraging this new technology that came into existence. So we're very focused on that right now, like figuring out that repeatable, smooth way of doing that over and over again. The other thing you need to focus on, as you correctly alluded to when asking this question, is the culture, the team you're building, and the culture you're building. Because when you're starting at ground zero with a startup, the first 10, 50 people you're going to hire, they set the tone of the culture for the company for many years to come, even when they leave. Like even after they leave, they already have set the tone. They have already set the direction. So you have to be very careful and very precise and be very decisive about that culture you're building in the early days, and making sure you're hiring people that will reinforce and grow that culture as opposed to guide it in the wrong direction. So I pay a lot of attention to that. I'm a very big believer in culture. I'm a very big believer in people are the source of culture, and hence, by definition, you have to be very careful about picking the people that are going to reflect the culture that you want to see manifested over time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is just one of those things, right? That at the end of the day, it all comes down to the people and the team's ability to really collaborate together. Are you inspired? Do you feel as though you're making a difference? Are you making a difference? And none of these jobs are easy. People that come in and they join early stage organizations, it's a serious uphill climb, and you want to really have a lot of passion for the work that you're coming in to do. So it's seems like an effort well placed in the cultural component.
No, very well. So I like the word passion. You use the word passion. I'm very passionate in my style of leadership as well. And I truly believe that passion is what keeps us going in a startup environment. Because in a startup environment, there's going to be ups and downs. By definition, there's going to be ups and downs. It's not going to be ups and ups. It's going to be ups and downs. And the thing that's going to keep you going when there is downs, because they are the harder times, are the downs than the ups, is the passion, is the belief in the mission. We have a very noble mission that we believe in, that we want to make succeed. And then the team that you can depend on, and we're all in this together, we're going to make it happen together, coupled with that passion. That's what makes you survive and grow a successful company. So I love that you use that word passion.
Yeah, it is one of those things where it's like you either have it about a thing or you don't. And so if you do, great. And if you don't, you might have to ask yourself even hard questions, right? Maybe you should not do it, right?
Yes.
Find something else where you can apply it. Well, I guess to that end, I'd ask you, sort of, when you think about in the marketing realm, I always call them essential elements. Like if we're coming up on a product launch, I'm talking about what are the essential elements? What are the things we have to do right to have this be successful? When you think about an engineering team, a team full of future IT and technology leaders, what are some of the elements beyond even the culture that you want to make sure you sort of get right in building that team? Is it a bottoms up structure? Is it a top down structure? Is it a certain profile or a geographical distribution? What are the elements that you really, really are thinking about when building teams like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll go back to culture and say you want to hire the culture you want to see manifesting itself. For example, and there's no right answer for this. I'm a big believer in team player cultures where everybody is as important as everybody else. And again, the reason why I say that's not the right answer, because there's some other companies that don't have cultures like that and still do well, and that's fine. It's just that's the culture I like to have in my companies. And so you want to be very purposeful of that. Like, we are in this together. We are a team. We're going to get this accomplished because of our collaborative efforts. when there is a failure, when something goes wrong, we are not going to look who to blame at all. We're going to look what was the problem, how did it happen, get to the root cause, and then we're going to add either processes or technology that prevent this problem from ever happening again. So automation is something I'm very, very big on. And automation is not just about technology, by the way. Automation is about processes. So I strongly look in the team building environments that we are after, and not just in engineering, but in a company overall, to be structured that way, where it's not about the marketing team pointing their fingers at the sales team and saying, hey, they're not selling the leads we're bringing in, or the sales team telling the marketing team, you're not bringing in enough leads. No, we're all in this together. Our goal is to debug where the problem is and try to fix it so that doesn't happen again, as opposed to point fingers and blame somebody else. So that's something that I'm always very kind of adamant about. And I always try to inject that in the teams I build from scratch. And if I start see people not behaving in the way that reflects, meaning they're getting more political or more about me and pushing the blame to somebody else. I'm perfect. I never make mistakes. It's always somebody else that's making the mistakes. Then we have the conversation with them. And if the conversation doesn't work, then we let them go. And I always highlight that in early startups, and people sometimes find that brutal, but I think that's the reason why Silicon Valley is so successful. In early startups, you should not be shy with firing, and you do it in a humane way and a polite way, and you help them find a new job, you vest them some stocks. But when you're a company of only 10 people or 20 people, let's say 10 people, just to make this math simple, and one of the 10 is not working well, that's a 10% throughput hit. That's 10% throughput hit. And actually, it's more than 10% because that person is not doing well, whether because of culture or because of progress. The 9 other people are being frustrated by that person not doing well, and they are performing lower as well. And so not only is it a 10% hit, it's way bigger as a hit. So in the early days, you want to be very decisive about making fixes. Now, I don't want to say don't help, like give them advice first and try to coach them and everything, but if you don't see progress, then you need to make a change. Now, later on, when you cross the 100-person boundary, now every person is only 1%. Now you can afford to spend 6 months with somebody to try and shift them around. So these are kind of some of my basic team building kind of advice in the early days.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of times those are the hardest choices to make, right? You always want to see people succeed and teams succeed, and you need to be able to make the right decisions quickly. And it's a tough balance to strike, I'm sure. Now, so when we think about culture, and it sounds like for sure in organizations that you're leading, culture is such a huge component. What inspires you each day? And what are you corresponding then want to impart to the people that are working on your team? You know, is it problem solving? Is it driving change? What are the things that really inspire you that you want team members who join these organizations that you lead to also subscribe to?
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a standard answer that everybody gives, but it's the true answer is solving customer problems is what inspires us every day. And that by definition means changing the world. Like if you are solving a certain problem that's going to make your customers productivity or your customers revenues or your customers cost improve in a certain dimension or the other or all at the same time, if you can do that, nothing is more satisfying than that. Like I've changed that customer in a significant way, and then you do that over and over again now across the world for many customers, and you see the impact that can have on the world, then now it's just like all the light bulbs light up, like wow, we are really working on changing the world from the grounds up in a very significant way. So that I would say, like, believe in the mission is very important. Like, for example, the mission we have at ZIR right now, which might change, but it's very early days. The mission we have right now is we want to help the world find meaning through search, right? We want you to find meaning through search. And that's a mission that I strongly believe in, that finding meaning is what we should be after. We shouldn't be after finding keywords. We shouldn't be after finding documents. It's about finding meaning. That's really what we're after. And the team, I try to get them excited about that mission. And if they are excited, people work hard and do great things when they believe in the purpose they're after and what mission they're after. If they're simply there and their impact on that mission, you have to always show them how they're impacting that mission. If they're simply there for a paycheck, they're only going to work there for a couple of hours per day and do the minimum just to get the paycheck, right? People go beyond the paycheck when they truly believe in what they're working on. And so I agree with you 100% that that's, you always want to start with that. You always want to start with the purpose. And then after the purpose, you want to start with the goals. Like, these are the goals we want to achieve. And then you want to link everybody this is how you're impacting that goal. So they can see how their work impacts the goal and how the goal leads to the purpose. And that's how you motivate people.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very true statement. Do you see anything, I guess when you think about what the challenges that people who are, coming into DevOps careers today, SRE careers, even traditional IT type careers, are there, challenges or opportunities that you observe uh, are very unique to those roles? Things that you're seeing, like, hey, wow, this landscape is changing, and if you're in this profession today, here are some awesome opportunities that you would be thinking of.
Yes, yes. I see a big challenge, by the way, and not just in these roles, in all roles, in every single discipline. It's the challenge of comfort. Challenge of comfort. Sometimes people get so comfortable with the way they're doing things, whether that be technology or otherwise, and they don't want to embrace the new way when the new way is way better because they're afraid, oh, now I have to go and learn this new way. That's the biggest challenge of our era, in my opinion, because the only way to evolve and grow in the future will be that whenever you feel you're comfortable, stop doing what you're doing, learn a new way that stresses you along a new dimension if you want to grow. I can't stress that strong enough. And that's the biggest challenge over and over again. And I see it leading to failure of people. For example, with Cloudera, as we will launching and advocating this new way of doing big data and data lakes and the precursor of all of that kind of stuff, there were so many legacy architects that were trained on the data warehousing techniques and the older generation techniques of how we get things done. And they would fight this new wave with every muscle they got. And so, they would poke every single hole, and you have a hole here, and you have a problem there, and you have a problem there, as opposed to looking what's the positives and what's the new things you're able to do that you couldn't ever do before with this new technology, because they're very comfortable in their old box and they don't want to go on the new box. These people now are all out of a job, right? Because the market shifted and all the market now wants to hire people that know how to work with data lakes and how we can have this very agile and very, very dynamic, quickly evolving way of analyzing and working with data. So that's, if there is one piece of advice I would give to folks listening to me right now, is number one, never be shy about learning new things. Never look at that as something that's going to make your job harder. It will, in the interim, make your job harder. But without doing that, you might not have a job in the future. And that trend will get faster and faster over time now that we have these AI techniques taking away many of our jobs. Though, and I'm telling my kids, I don't want you to specialize in being a doctor or being a lawyer or being an accountant. I want you to specialize in learning. You have to be very good at learning over and over again to find the thing that excites you within what's available to you.
Yeah, it is the speed at which those shifts are happening. It's dramatic. So it's almost like you don't want to wait a year. You spend, oh, you know what? I didn't really embrace that approach, but I'll try that next year. That's too long. You could be several iterations behind at that point. I mean, it
Yeah.
applies. Obviously, my lens tends to be what I work on every day, but you think about how organizations target prospects from a marketing perspective. And it used to be that you relied on just reaching out to people and hoping that, oh, you just hit them at the right time. So if I reach you enough, you're either going to be so annoyed that you're going to talk to me anyway, or I hit a pinpoint. But now what has happened? We've all just had to become very intense listeners. So if you want to be a good marketer, you got to really, obviously share customer value, but be able to intensely listen to what your prospective buyer is saying is a pain. And at that point, after they've done all of their research, respond. But it's not there's not the same tools. The tricks are not the same. So this is like this constant evolution of trying to stay ahead of how things are changing. So I can appreciate the importance of that, even when you think about any role within an organization.
Anywhere. And 10 years from now, that way of selling might change again.
You're
So that's
right.
the, yeah.
Could be like
Yeah.
the no touch operation. People are like, oh yeah, this is all good. Talk to nobody. Anyway, well, listen. I really appreciate the dialogue today, and I just think your perspective, sometimes perspective is just like, you've seen this enough to know that a lot of it is getting the basics right. Product market fit, you talked about getting that right, really being passionate about what you're working towards, letting culture be at the forefront, even when culture is hard to cultivate because people are running so hard. If it were that easy, every organization would have a great culture. So like continuing to keep those things top of mind in itself, those are really important, outputs for people to take in. I wonder, I'll ask you one question, which is just maybe more for fun and for our listeners to get your perspective. What sort of podcast, news articles, outlets, where do you like to consume information? Where was a trusted resource for you? And maybe not so different from what you guys are going to be bringing back from a search perspective, but what are some of your trusted sources?
Yeah, there's no single source that I trust implicitly. I like to look at many sources to make up my opinions. I do rely significantly on social media like LinkedIn and Facebook from my networks of people I trust. When I see them reading something, when I see them listening to something, then that's what I try to go after as a mechanism to filter down the onslaught of information that's coming on us left and right. I agree with you. It would be great in the future if there is an agent that can represent me and know my likes and dislikes so deeply that it can recommend to me, this is, if you were looking at all of your social media right now, this is the one I would have picked for you. And then I would just read that. And maybe one day we'll have that. But right now it's really word of mouth, I would say, but word of mouth leveraging social media.
Yeah. Yes. And perspectives of those you trust. I think there's a lot of that. I mean, in so many facets of what we do all day, we're looking at, oh, this person's a really smart and capable person. What are they reading? And likewise, they look at, maybe what we read. So exactly. It doesn't go away. Even when that communication is digital and not always face to face, it remains the same, which is, these relationships and connections are built on trust. But
very true. Very true.
Well, to our listeners, we appreciate everybody joining today. And more than that, Amr, we are so really, really grateful to have you on today, have you share a little bit of perspective on our very new podcast. And folks that want to learn a little bit more about ZIR, do check them out online, ZIR AI. And we will be watching you in your journey and are excited to see what the road ahead, where it takes you. And with that, I will say thanks for your time. And we hope you have a great afternoon.